Welcome to my channel where we cover the lore of video games. We cover all kinds from the mainstream to the indie, so I hope you enjoy your stay, and welcome to the Chronicler of Lore. The Mages Guild of Tamriel is always recruiting new members, probably because so many of them die or disappear when spells go wrong. But since no one will turn down the chance to learn how to set people on fire with their fingertips, you join up. And it doesn't take long for Velast, a senior member of the guild, to call on you for help with an assignment. She's the keeper of all things lore for the guild, which officially makes her my favorite person. And since books are extremely important to mages, her position is second only to the guildmaster Vanis. So a request from her isn't exactly something that you can ignore, so you head to the guild hall in Daggerfall to see what she's got in store for you. Velast has heard that there are some ancient books in some even older ruins called Xylem, and she wants you to go there and collect them for her. It doesn't sound like the most difficult of jobs, but considering the fact that ancient ruins could be filled with everything from smugglers and pirates to zombies and demons, there's no telling what will try to eat you while you're there. There are 4 clearly magical books there, but when you grab one of them, one that doesn't have any words written in it, the ghost of a mage named Shalador appears and tells you to let Velast know that fire will show you what's written on the pages. He also thinks she'll know what to do once she hears that. So with your prizes in hand, you head back to the guild. Velast is very surprised to hear that Shalador showed up. The man is a legend among mages, and he wasn't wrong about her understanding his message about how to reveal the words in the book. In the first era, the mages would use an ink that would only appear when they covered their writing in a magical fire. That's a good way to keep people from learning your secrets, but the guild hall has a brazier that burns with the exact type of fire that you need, so Velast has you throw the book inside of it. She probably made you do it just in case it blew up, but it doesn't. The words do appear, but you can't read them. Velast can read some of it, and she sees a spell that would let you summon the ghost of Shalador. Since he was pretty much the most powerful mage in his day, he'll likely be able to help you decipher the book. Granted, summoning him will link his mind to yours, which will let him talk to you whenever he wants. I have enough voices in my head, so I wouldn't be all that excited about adding another one, but apparently members of the Mages Guild are okay with that because you immediately agree to perform the summoning ritual. It works, and Shalador does link with you. He thinks that you're the perfect person to help him with this final mission, but it's going to be extremely difficult. The world is at war, but Shalador is planning on making a safe haven where mages can study their art without getting pulled into the world's nonsense. He actually made the place hundreds of years ago, but it got stolen and taken to a place called the Shivering Isles, which is not a place that anyone should ever visit. The only way to get Shalador's island back is to find 4 books, which is what he needs you for. Those books are in a place called Cheesemonger's Hollow, which is in the top 5 on the list of stupidest names for places, but it's one of the homes of the insane god Sheogorath. The guy is the god of madness, and he is extremely unpredictable, so there's no telling what he'll do. But because self-preservation isn't high on your priority list, and Shalador is already dead, you agree to go with him, and he opens a portal to the Hollow. The first thing you run into in the weirdly named place is Sheogorath's manservant. He seems relatively normal to say he works for a crazy guy, and when you tell him that you're there for Shalador's books, he agrees to let you go inside after a little test. Well, it's not all that little. He opens a portal that lets Daedra out that try to kill you, and they won't stop coming until you close the portal. Once you've sealed it, he lets you head into the Hollow to get the books. Apparently it's all happening under Sheogorath's orders because he knows that you're there. He sends his personal monster to fight you right before you grab the books, for his personal entertainment of course. When you kill it, he lets you take one of the books, but he makes the other 3 vanish and shows up to talk to you in person, which will probably be anything but good. The Daedric Prince remembers Shalador, and he knows exactly what the man is trying to get back. Since he has something that you want, he figures that it'll be fun to turn your book collecting into a little contest. He'll give you a few random tasks that will likely kill you, and if you live, you get a book. Since you don't exactly have a choice but to play along if you want the things, you agree. Sheogorath doesn't think the game will be as fun without Shalador, so proving that he really does have godlike powers, he makes Shalador appear so he can talk to him. He lets the dead mage know that the 2 of you have made a deal, which Shalador is suspicious of since Sheogorath's deals always have some type of hook in them. And he wasn't wrong. The god put a curse on the books, making it impossible for Shalador to ever read them. After delivering that not too happy bit of information and shrugging off an attack from the very unhappy mage, Sheogorath disappears, leaving you and the ghost alone to figure out how you're going to get the other books. Velas will be able to translate the book that you have, but it'll take longer than it would have for Shalador, and since there's not much else you can do at the moment, the mage teleports you back to her so you can let her know what happened and she can get to work. When you tell her everything that's happened, she's not exactly thrilled to know that she won't have Shalador's help with the book. But she gets to work and she promises to send someone to find you once she's finished. When Velas has figured out what the book says, Shalador tracks you down so you can get ready to deal with your first trial. Since books are Velas' life, she's been enjoying working on the little project, but the whole process has made her tired. The book seems to be nothing more than a collection of children's stories, but each story holds secrets about ancient magic and history, which shows that while Sheogorath is clearly nuts, he's also a genius for being able to create something so sophisticated. Which means there's probably more to the trials than what you see on the surface. Shalador's been having trouble opening a portal back to Sheogorath's realm, but he's come up with a solution to that problem, so he manages to tear open a hole to the Shivering Isles, and you step through to where Haskell is waiting for you again. His master wants you to find some items for him before he'll give you the second book. One's a staff and the other's a fork because you're not dealing with the most normal of people. The fork is magical for someone like a god, but for you it'll just be a regular eating utensil. One that Haskell opened a portal directly to for your convenience. Granted, the portal might not go directly to the thing since it got lost in Skyrim during the previous era a very long time ago. The thing was in the tomb of a dragon priest, so naturally you showing up and trying to take something causes all of the corpses to get up and try to kill you. After fighting through no small number of undead, you find the fork and Haskell sends you to Hammerfell where he thinks the staff is in the hands of a long-dead prince. The man had been a great warrior 1,000 years ago, which means he'll be a dangerous zombie too. His followers had used magical seals to guard his resting place, but between you and Shalador, getting past them and his guards isn't all that rough. Once you've re-killed the man and his guardians, you take Sheogorath's staff and Haskell brings you back to the Isle so you can talk to his master. After he makes you use the staff, which is weirdly named the Wabbajack, to turn a few people into very random things, the god honors his word and gives you the book, which instantly takes you back to the Mages Guild. The second book is called The Circus of Cheerful Slaughter, which Velas thinks is an interesting title, but that's probably because she won't have to do whatever weirdness the book tells you to. Either way, she gets to work on translating it. Figuring out what the book says isn't all that hard for her, but figuring out what the book wants you to do is a little bit rougher this time. Mainly because it doesn't make sense. She figures that since you're the one who dealt with the insane god, the translated version might make sense when you read it. It doesn't, but that doesn't matter because as soon as you touch it, it takes you to a creepy forest where Sheogorath is waiting for you. For this trial, he wants you to perform a play that he wrote about the three alliances being at war while the Mages Guild tries not to get drawn into it, and you keep them out of it by murdering the different alliance leaders. For the most part, it doesn't make any sense. Pretty much like everything else the crazy god does. But in the midst of it all, he shows you a bit about Velas' history and how she was so talented that Vanus was all too eager to accept her into the guild. He also shows signs that he's been watching her struggle to decipher his books, which proves that he is very interested in her, which is definitely not a good thing. You also get to see how Sheogorath tricked Shalador into trading the island sanctuary he made for a book called the Folium Discognitum, which was not a good trade, and he vowed to get back his island. He got so focused on that mission that he ended up driving his own wife away. After you finish the play, which ends with you fighting to save your mage friends, the crazy god gives you book number 3, which drags you back to the Mages Guild. Velas saw you disappear, and since you came back with another book, she figures you must have completed another trial. One that she doesn't want to know anything about, but she is eager to get started on translating this new book. She's gotten faster with the translation, so it doesn't take long for her to figure out what the next trial is, but Shalador thinks her constantly working with the books is doing something to her. There's nothing any of you can do about it, but the mage wants you to keep an eye on her just in case. Your next trial is in a place called the Chateau of the Ravenous Rodent, which is in the part of the Shivering Isles called Dementia, which does not sound even remotely inviting. But Velas opens up a portal to take you to the place, and you step through to start the final trial. Shalador goes with you for the last trial, but Sheogorath doesn't want him there, so he boots him from the realm before telling you about your last test. The place he's brought you to is his family estate that he's been passing down to himself from generation to generation. He brings guests there from time to time, and the first thing he wants you to do is evict the one that doesn't belong there while avoiding getting eaten since the other guests are literal cannibals. Once that's done, he sends you through a maze full of monsters that's also very dark, because monsters are even more scary when you can't see them. After that, he sends you into the mansion, which is full of crazy people who try to kill you. He wants you to kill his uncle Leo, who had a weird rat fetish. Since it's better to not ask questions that you don't want to know the answers to, you kill the guy and Sheogorath gives you the last book, one that he thinks Velas will really benefit from reading. It doesn't take long for her to translate it, which has Shalador super excited since that means he can finally get his island back. But reading the book seems to have changed Velas. She randomly says nonsense statements very much like Sheogorath, but she claims to be fine, and she'll be even better once she finally gets to see this island. So using the 4 books together, Shalador is able to pull his island back to Tamriel. The place is supposed to be a lush sanctuary filled with beautiful structures and landscapes, like a resort for mages to go and get away from the troubles of the world. But as soon as he summons it, Shalador knows that something is wrong. You and Velas follow him through the portal to Ivea and find that Sheogorath had filled the island with Daedra. The only way the place will ever be usable is if you clear out the creatures, so the 3 of you head to the Grand Hall at the center of the island so you can see just how bad the situation is. As a surprise to no one, you find Sheogorath waiting for you there. Shalador actually tries to attack the god to get him to leave the island, but that obviously does nothing because he's a god. He didn't break his word. He said that if you completed his trials, you could have the island. He just didn't tell you that he had filled it with creatures. He recommends that you get written contracts in the future if you plan on making deals with people. That way you can iron out all of the details. It shouldn't be a big deal. He figures you and Velas can close the portals and stop the Daedra without too much trouble. He figures she would have seen this coming since he specifically cursed his books because he knew that the only person who could read them was her. He clearly wants her for something, but you won't find out what until you deal with the creatures, so you get to work on shutting down the portals. The god barricades himself inside of the Grand Hall, so while you and Velas work, Shalador puts his efforts into breaking through the god's barrier. As the 2 of you close the portals, Velas steadily goes more and more insane, and by the time you get into the building, she's gone completely nuts, thinking butterflies are dancing in her head, so you have to face the god alone. He has you fight Haskell, who among all of his other duties is apparently a bodyguard too. After you beat the man, Sheogorath agrees to leave the island, but he plans on taking Velas with him to the Shivering Isles. It's a place for crazy people, and the spells he put on the books were specifically made to break the woman's mind and make her a perfect new permanent resident of his domain. But he decides to give you the choice on whether she comes with him or not. He offers you the same book of power that Shalador had traded his island for. If you decide to give up the power that the book offers, he'll fix Velas' mind and leave. Only a fool would trust any artifact that someone like Sheogorath offers, so you do the smart thing and choose to save Velas. True to his word, the god fixes her mind and leaves, giving the mages a place where they can truly be neutral and train in their arts without ever having to worry about being drawn into the wars of the world. Maybe. This concludes the story of the Mages Guild. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Donate to the channel if you can, and I'll see you all next time.